Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Hopefully you guys are all having a fantastic day. I'm really excited about today's video because, as you can see, it's my preliminary fall outlook 2018. Before we get into this video, I have a couple of disclaimers to make. First off, overall, based off looking on most of the models, most of the things that I will show you later, which I forecast off of, it does appear that this fall will be a very warm fall for much of the United States, and there will not really be an area where there's insane cold or much below average temperatures. Also, because it is a preliminary fall outlook doesn't mean it will be completely accurate. There will be definitely be some flaws, so forgive me on that. I can't foresee the future 100%, but this is the best guess at this far point out. However, I have still one more thing to say. Please consider subscribing to my channel, please consider liking the video, and you may be wondering, why am I asking you guys to like the video before the video actually starts? What I'm just saying is, keep this in the back of your mind. At the end of the video, whether you like the video or not, you could like the video, and whether you like the video, at the end you could subscribe to my channel. It really helps out a lot, so thank you for that. We now move on to talk about the things that we will be talking about in the preliminary fall outlook. And the first thing is the QBO, and also the ENCO, NOAA Seasonal Outlook, and CFS model. So the first two, QBO and ENCO, are typically used to measure impacts on winter time. However, winter time, in meteorologically speaking, starts December 1st, but ENCO and QBO usually start impacting the winter pattern, the winterish pattern, around November, and goes all the way through March and April. So that's why I'm still including this in the fall outlook, and that's why I'm still including this as a factor for this fall outlook. So you may be wondering, what is a QBO? The QBO is quasi-biennial oscillation, and this is a measure of the winds above the equator in the stratosphere, whether they are blowing easterly or westerly. Now, how strong they are blowing westerly or easterly, the more easterly, the negative the reading is. The more westerly, the positive the indicator is. And if it blows easterly, the winds, then that typically impacts the United States weather by making a colder weather in the eastern half of the United States and more mild and wet more mild and dry in the west. And then the westerly winds of the QBO tend to make it opposite, flipped around. So that is a QBO, which is definitely a factor, and that also impacts late fall, not just winter. The ENCO is the El Niño Southern Oscillation, and that is waters based off the Peruvian coast, off of South America, if you don't know where Peru is. And whether those waters are above average or below average, that determines whether it's an El Niño or La Niña. El Niño occurs when it's below average temperatures, or El Niño occurs when it's above average temperatures. La Niña occurs when it's below. This year it's predicted to be a El Niño, above average temperatures, but there is a slight catch to that. I'll explain that in a minute. We will also be talking about NOAA Seasonal Outlook, which is basically NOAA's outlook for month by month, and they technically take that off the CFS model, but they do have a slight variation. That's why I qualified them as two different factors. So you now may be wondering, why or how do we figure out what direction the winds are going to be blowing this winter or this late fall, since this is a preliminary fall outlook. And we got to look at patterns. That, folks, is the most reliable thing at this point. We could see that we don't have a outlook for this fall and winter. And also another thing I want to point out, that this is January, this column, and all the way through here is December. So all these months in between are the months that are in between. So if we look this year, we are, sorry about this, it keeps popping up, but if you look down at 2018, we are at 19.0, so 19, 19, 21, 24 negative, and if that was to happen in the winter, that would indicate more of a snowy winter for the eastern half of the United States. However, we still have half a year left, and that could definitely change. And if we look at other previous records, like right here, look at this, 2015 went from below average into above average. Right here, another cold or another negative year at the beginning turned into above average. Another negative year stayed below average. So again, that may be one of those years. We can't really predict it too much, but typically if it does start strong, it weakens into a positive by the end of the year. That is a pattern that we have been noticing. So at this point, it most likely seems that the winds will be blowing westerly, which means a slightly warmer, milder late fall rather compared to a colder with the easterly. So that definitely is not good for the folks that want snow in late fall. However, is this confirmed? Nope. Is this going to decide our whole fall? Not at all. And this is another thing I wanted to show you is where the winters for QBO, that December, January, February was 10 to negative 10 to negative 15. This is how it looked like. You could see lots of cold air, plenty of snow cover. Now we move on to talk about the ENCO, or the El Nino Southern Oscillation. So there are two different types, like I said, El Nino or La Nina. El Nino, you could see dry and warm for the northern part of the country, and wet and cool, so typically more snow for the southern parts of the country. La Nina is pretty much opposite, cooler, colder across the north, and wet and warm across the south, southeast. That means a lot of big storms for the northeast, and that's exactly what happened last year. So now we got to determine what will be this year. And you can see that ENCO neutral is favored through July and September 2018, with an El Nino favored thereafter. So anything after September, which is considered fall, will be an El Nino. So the impacts of an El Nino, like I showed you before, are dry and warm across the north and wet and cool across the south. But again, that is only for the later part of fall. This, you can see July through September is going to be neutral, and that could mean a beginning that is colder to fall and an ending that is warmer to fall across the north, and the opposite in the south. So this is what an El Nino looks like in this picture right here. You can see eastern core right there. That is a typical El Nino, but there is a catch to this. As you can see, it says eastern right there. If it's a central-based El Nino and the core is way off the coast of Peru and South America, not like it usually is, and that is called a Modoki El Nino, or Modokai El Nino. I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but the Modokai El Nino basically means that if that happens, it's a different type of El Nino, and if that happens, the winters could be more opposite flip down of the El Nino and more like a La Nina, even though it's El Nino. It's a little bit mind-boggling, but that could mean that the late fall and winters could be more brutal and cold in the eastern half rather than the western half. Why I bring this up? Because as of now, you can see there's not really a defined area of where the El Nino is going on. There are some hints that it's going on right there, but there also is some warmer water over here. So we might have a Modoki El Nino, which may lead to some colder conditions in the eastern half of the country despite being an El Nino. So now let's move on to NOAA's seasonal outlooks. This is another great source. Even though some people don't like NOAA, NOAA is definitely fairly reliable. They always have their own twist to things, which may not be in the right way, but usually it turns out to be fairly on point. So in terms of precipitation outlook, this is July, August, September. These 3 months averaged out. You could see right there for your southwest with the monsoons. More moist in the southwest, drier in the northwest, and drier in this Gulf Coast, and wetter in the mid-Atlantic. And in the outlook for this, July, August, September, you could see cooler in the center of the country. Does that ring a bell? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. The beginning of the fall may be cooler than average for parts of the northern of the country, and then it may be warmer for the southern part. But if we move on, you can see that it evens out more, and the northern parts are going to stay warmer, while the southwest is still warm, but not nearly as above average as the northern corners of the United States and the northern parts. You could see that the precipitation stays very similar, wet in the southwest, wet in the mid-Atlantic, and below average in the Gulf Coast. The only area which clears up is the northwest. And this is August, September, October, by the way, those 3 months averaged. And now for September, October, November, you could see southwest again above average and again below average across the northwest. Equal chances everywhere else. Sorry, I didn't explain that earlier. EC means equal chances everywhere else. And you can see that it really does even out. Sorry about that. It really does even out in temperatures for September, October, November. So late fall may be cool, maybe warmer across much of the country. So we looked at NOAA's seasonal outlook, And now we gotta look at the CFS, the last part of the Outlook, before I finally show you my map. And this is for the month of September, this is for the month of October, and this is for the month of November. You can see for the first part, it may be cooler in the eastern half. This is September. Seems very likely since we're going into a cooler pattern right now. I made a video about that a couple days ago. You could check that out on my channel. This is for October. You can see warmer across the north, average around the south, about average for the south, and then above average for the east for November, and then about average, maybe even slightly below average for November for the west. But this is so far out these last 2 months, I really wouldn't trust these things. I would update you guys. I will update you guys on this in my final preliminary fall outlook, or even my preliminary fall outlook number 2. But I would more focus on this because I do think that the eastern part of the country does have the best bet of having below average temperatures during this early part of the fall. And now it's time to finally show you the map that I have made. Drum roll, please. And this is my preliminary fall outlook. This is the official one for the preliminary one. And you can see that it's not the best design, but I did my best. Another little small disclaimer with this is assuming that Modoki El Nino will not form. So let's start in the Midwest. Colder, shorter fall, especially towards the beginning, average snowfall if at all. So I said colder, shorter fall, especially towards beginning, because that's when the temperatures could be below average. However, later on, it might warm up, and that's why the snowfall will be around average, or any at all, because much of the states don't even receive that much. Much of these states don't even receive that much snow during the fall. They do, but not too much. Now let's move on to the Northeast, which is a slightly weakened version of this version, which is slightly colder, slightly shorter, and uglier. So I think it will be slightly warmer for the Northeast rather than the Midwest, but again, it will be nothing super cold, nothing like 2012 where there was like a white Halloween. I don't think that's not going to happen this year. But it's going to be probably above average in terms of temperatures, but slightly colder compared to the rest of the nation. That's what I meant by it. And also, that's what I meant by colder, shorter fall here. I did not mean that it's going to be cold. It just may be colder compared to the rest of the fall in that area. So, and the rest of the region. So, you can see, let's move on now to here, to the Southwest. And this is assuming that Modoki El Nino will not form and an El Nino will form. So that means that wetter and cooler, lots of snow and high elevations. So again, if there is any areas that do get a lot of snow during the fall, they probably will get above average. But again, that's not a lot of places besides the mountains. Now moving on to the Southeast, it's a slightly weaker version of this one. Slightly cooler and slightly wetter. I didn't even include snow because not a single part of the Southeast gets snow in fall. Maybe towards November into December, but that is very late, and at this point it is very far-fetched and it's too early to tell. But slightly cooler, slightly wetter, that is the impact of this, basically, of the El Nino, the jet streams going right here below and out, and that will be including some slightly cooler and slightly wetter conditions for the Southeast. Not as strong as the Southwest though. And now the Northwest, I think, will be the warmest, drier fall, nice fall, probably the best conditions out of all of them. And below average snowfall due to the fact that if the El Nino forms and not the Modoki El Nino, then that is what we will be having in the Northwest. Just below average snowfall, below average rainfall. So nice fall. I think it will be very warm over there. But this is preliminary. Again, this could change. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please consider liking this video. Please consider subscribing to my channel. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching.